What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, also the 2018 Innovation Award winner, handed out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And do note, this is the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, broadcasting live stream right now on Get Vocal and numerous other live stream video platforms. And we're also doing audio live stream on a platform called Get Vocal. All that stuff's out of the way. Let's make it happen. Broadcasting live here. We have another new friend for the Dr. Vibe Show. And this gentleman's an interesting guy. I like to do my research, and I found him out. So I'm glad he's made time in his positive, productive schedule to share with us. Gentleman's name is Reginald A. Howard. Sorry, he's a mental health advocate, author, speaker, podcaster, and coach. Podcaster, that's why I sought him out. Black male podcaster, even more. Wanted to see him out, search him out. He uses his life experiences to ignite, inspire, and empower others. Rather, it's through his paradigm shifting book and his emotionally connecting speeches, his therapeutic podcast, or his mentally clarifying coaching. He's here to serve and help people live their legendary life. His platforms are dedicated to hearing, helping, and healing others. He's going to be sharing a little bit about himself tonight, but also sharing about his podcast, the Black Mental Health Podcast. So welcome for the first time, and hopefully not the last time, Reginald J. Howard. How we doing?
I'm good, sir. I'm good, sir. Quite a quick resume you have there, award winning and all that. So I'm happy to be a part of an award winning podcast.
Yeah, I'm just a guy. I just do. I just, as I said, I'm the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. Before we go any further, just want to shout out on the Get Vocal platform, Lokesh, member of the Get Vocal team, and Herbie. Thank you so much, Herbie, for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule to join us. Mr. Reginald, you are a busy, positive, productive guy. But before we get to what's making you busy these days, let's cycle back. Tell us about the early days, the younger Reginald Howard. Because I still say you're young, but where did you grow up?
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
So originally I'm a first generation American. My mother came here from Antigua, home with 365 beaches, and she came to America to make sure her children could seek a better life. So I grew up in Philadelphia, in the poverty-stricken area, what most would say the quote-unquote hood. So I grew up there, just trying to find my way to success as most are trying to do in the hood. So just another guy that always been interested in helping people, or another kid that always been interested in, making people feel happy around them. So early on, I recognized that I like people being happy. So I guess it's always been my life purpose to find ways, even as an adult, a young adult, to find ways to make people happy.
Excellent. Before we go any further, also just want to shout out Terry Johnson. Thank you so much for joining on the Periscope platform. I want to ask you, you said you want to make people happy, but was your childhood happy?
Happy is a big word. So I would say, looking back on it, I'm happy with the experiences that I had the pleasure of being in, because they shaped who I am today. And if I didn't have those certain experiences, then I wouldn't be able to do some of the work that I am doing. So I would say, yes, I had a happy childhood, but I love the lessons and the experiences that I had, because although it wasn't always happy, it provided the vessel for me to want to do the work that I'm doing today.
Excellent. You mentioned growing up in Antigua. How long did you spend there, and what were your memories of growing up in Antigua, the 365 beaches?
Well, growing up, I was back and forth between Philadelphia and there, and it gave me a newfound respect and appreciation for what's over here in America. I feel like a lot of people don't know what it really means to be poor, like in the sense of poor, and you don't have anything, or you have to go anywhere. So anytime I get a chance to go back over to Antigua, I get a newfound appreciation of the things that I have in my life, because that's a third world country and people are literally fighting to survive for their lives. And as much as we think we're poor over here, or we don't have much, or we're fighting for our rights, it's like, try going to a third world country and see, and you'll be blessed to be in certain positions that you're in. So going back and forth, I love my cousins, my family. It gave me a sense of foundation for my life. So I'm truly grateful for being that, having that heritage in my history.
Do you still go back periodically?
I tried to. I haven't been there since about 2015 ish, I want to say. Because when you start to grow up, you have family, you got responsibility. So I can't really go as much as I could. When I was a kid, my mom was paying for it. But when you got to pay for your own family, it's a whole different ballpark. But I'm trying to get back as fast as possible.
Nice. Why did your mother choose Philadelphia in the United States?
She didn't. All right. So what happened was, she came here because she needed surgery, and you need the best. She wanted to have the best. She didn't. My grandmother wanted her the best possible thing. She needed surgery on her eyes, and so she sent her to America to her brother in New York. And my mom started getting to things with that side of the family, and fortunately, around that time, she wound up meeting my father, who was born in America, and she wound up moving with his mother, and that's how the journey began. Who lived in Philadelphia. So my mom was coming back from Philadelphia and New York and traveling back and forth, and she met my father in Philadelphia, and that's how that story started.
Do you have any memories of coming to Philadelphia the first time?
Well, I was here already,
okay.
I was here already. So my journey starts in Philadelphia.
So, and it's interesting, and I share this with people, especially from Philadelphia. Out of all the cities in the world or states in the world, there have been more people from Philadelphia and or Pennsylvania on the Dr. Vibe Show platform than anywhere else.
Wow.
So there is something special about Philadelphia with the Dr. Vibe Show. And I haven't been there for a few years, so I have to get back because I feel there's a calling for me down in the city of brotherly love.
I'm happy. Hey, listen, anytime you're here, I'm happy to host you. Maybe we can go out to dinner sometime.
Absolutely. Maybe do a live podcast from Philadelphia.
Hey, I like
there
that.
You go. Okay, got to have some documentation, not just good food, but just some documentation digitally wise.
I got you.
Nice. So, education, schooling, what have you achieved in that area?
So fortunately, I was able to go to college, and study communications. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish. And let me backtrack, because when I went to college, from a kid, I knew I wanted to own my own businesses. I knew I wanted to make an impact. And it wasn't that I was against jobs, but I knew I could only make a certain level of impact working a job. So, and I always thought it was interesting that you can create and build something from the ground up. And it's a sense of pride with that. So I knew I wanted to own my own business. So I went to college with the intentions of starting my own business. No one told me, in order to learn how to start your own business, just start one, and then you can learn a lot of stuff just starting one, a lemonade stand or stuff like that. So I had little traits of that growing up. I used to sell mixed CDs. I used to download before iPod and all that stuff. I would go to school and get requests from kids selling the CDs. I used to cut grass, snow, shovel snow. So I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. So when I went to college, Shippensburg University, I started studying business. When I got there, I realized how hard the math classes were. And so I wound up having to pick a major that was easy enough that it didn't required as much effort on the math end, but also that I could find some interest in. And again, to backtrack, I always got in trouble for talking too much in school, because I always wanted to be the guy that's communicating and stuff like that. Didn't know what that was as a kid, but growing up, I found out that people are getting paid to talk too much. Like, oh, I need to get into this field.
Nice.
So I studied communication at Shippensburg University, and then came out still having that entrepreneur itch and wanted to start my own business. And that's how I got to start doing some of the things I'm doing today.
I can so much relate, because way back when I was in university, my first year, I took accounting. And I go, what is so difficult? Like all this math stuff, it just didn't make it. And get it from my last year of high school, I said, I don't want to take any math anymore. Anything I want to do has to be done on the
Mm-hmm.
calculator. Why making it more difficult than
Mm-hmm.
it is? So I can relate in regards to that. Where did you get the sense of entrepreneurship? Was that something in like someone showed you, or just got came through you to be entrepreneurial?
I've grown to learn from just studying my family and history that it's in my blood, literally. From my grandmother in Antigua, she owned her own like convenience store in the town, like outside in her house. And being in a third world country, to have your own store where you're selling to the kids in the or in the adults in the neighborhood, that's
Oh yeah.
big. And then learning from about my dad as I grew up, because I grew up fatherless for a while. My dad and my mom didn't get along. He moved away, and I was with her most of my life. And after I reconnected with him, I had learned that he wrote plays, he wrote
Wow.
books. He didn't publish anything,
Right.
and I talked about that in my book. But he didn't publish anything. But he always had an entrepreneur spirit. And learning from his mom, she's a preacher, pastor, like she's an evangelist. So she's always been selling things. So it's literally genetically encoded in me. But I didn't know that until I started talking to my family members.
Nice. You mentioned another thing of interest there, and I don't know if you're comfortable talking about it. What was it like reconnecting with your father?
And I'm open book, so any
Yeah.
question is
Good.
no
Okay. I
questions is
just,
off limit. So it wasn't until I had my first son that and to give a context of why I chose mental health. I started when I had my first son. I felt so worthless because I didn't have a job, I didn't have a car, I didn't have anywhere to live. I was living with my mom's house, and I was supposed to provide for a little human being, and I felt worthless. So I texted all my friends and family members that I felt close, and I was like, I don't want to be here no more. Take care of my son. So that was when the suicidal thoughts, because I felt worthless. And I tell people all the time that it's not that you want to end your life, it's you just want the pain to stop. So
nice.
I
I
wind
hear you.
up taking pills and not overdosing, but just wanting to go to sleep. So the pain was, I don't even know what the pills were. And then I woke up with my godmom knocking on my mom's door, and she took me out. And I realized I had to sit with myself, like, this is not me. I got to start doing some research on myself. And that's how I started getting that's the mental health start right there. I started learning anger management and stuff like that. But also within that research and within myself, I reached out to a man that I didn't know. I'm like, I don't have the tools to be a father because my father wasn't there. So now I want to know why he wasn't there. I'm gonna give you a clean slate and figure out why you weren't a part of my life. And I had some connections with my little brother from his side, and I reached out to his mom and said, if you talk to him, let him know I'm looking for him. And we talked, and I can remember that day as clear as day right now. I just remember I was at my part-time job. I was sitting in the parking lot. Excuse me. I was sitting in the parking lot, and I just let him have it. And once not letting him have it in the sense of coming at his character, but how I felt with him not being a part of my life. And then some emotions poured out of me. And this was like I was like 21, 22. Some emotions poured out of me that I didn't even know I still existed or ever existed. And I'm like, you didn't bring my bike up from 12th grade or 12 years old, and I didn't. I'm grown and or over 18, and I'm talking about a bike that I didn't get when I was 12. So it was a tumultuous process where we went up and down trying to figure things out. And I just talked to him for about 2 hours today. It's not the relationship is not where I would love it to be, but we have a line of communication, and the only reason why it's not there where I want it to be is because um I want I tell people that in order for that relationship to work for a parent or any individual that took care of you, that is not available, that you want to still have a relationship with, you have to decide if you want the relationship or the childhood. That he can't take me and throw the ball outside, he can't take me to a baseball game, or to buy me peanuts, and he can't do those things as that I want as a child. He can't get me that bike basically that I want. I'm grown now, but he can restart now and build on that relationship. So either you're gonna fight for the childhood or you're gonna fight for the relationship. And I had to learn to let that part of the go is over and give him a clean slate. And now we have a relationship now that we're building on day by day.
Well, congratulations on reconnecting and rebuilding. And I think from what you shared, I can say for you that your relationship with your father is not where you want it to be, but it isn't where it used to be.
That's true.
Good stuff. You brought up a very tumultuous time for especially a number of men having your first
Mm-hmm.
child and not having a job. How was that, and how did you get through that?
So for me, I had to refine my self worth, and I had to refine what I had to redefine what it meant to be Reggie again. And I had to realize that I'm not a kid anymore because I have a kid, and I had to grow up and be step into that role of being a father. And just because you don't have a father, don't mean that you can't become one. Start learning stuff. There's books out there. There are people out there. There's men. There's men you can model yourself after. It's a lot of things out there and resources that you can start to use to start to transform and become and step into that role. So for me, it was a hard transition because, of course, again, we just talked about it earlier about my mom used to pay for my tickets to go back to Antigua. Now I'm I'm responsible for paying for somebody to come to Antigua and stuff like that. So I had to, redefine who I was and what I meant to this world and what I was going to mean to my up and coming son, and just enjoy and embrace that role so that way I can become a better man for him.
Excellent. Just want to take a quick shout out here. Thanks for joining in the last little bit. You Foresight, Sean Osby, also Nicole Van Cleve. Have not heard from her for a while from the Chicago area. And Dawn Fit to Be Free, all on the Periscope side. Thanks everyone for joining in. Whatever amount of time you're in, it's appreciated, not taken for granted. Let's continue on with the Reggie journey then. So, how did the Black Mental Health Podcast start?
Well, we talked about my experience with talking too much and going to school and learning about communication. And I just started to fuse all those things with what I was learning about mental health, anxiety, depression, and stuff like that. And I didn't want to go to school again to become a therapist or become a psychiatrist or psychologist. I was like, I got to find a way or a medium to expose or present to the world everything that I was researching and learning. And behind the closed doors, people always told me that I was a great listener and I was always great to talk to, and I would have great conversations. And then I would have those same conversations with other people, and it wouldn't like mesh together. I'm like, this should be an open dialogue amongst everyone. Like, we should all be having these conversations. And I always tell the kids and the children or the students I talk to when I go to the universities is we shouldn't all feel alone in a room full of people. And the only reason why we all feel alone in a room full of people is because we're all trying to hide the things that we've been through and the things that we trying to hide pain the best. We trying to see, oh, I can hide my pain better than you. I can hide what I've been through better than you. And I wear my story on my sleeve. So, backtrack back to the podcast. I was like, I want to create a platform where people can share their story in hopes that it inspires and encourage others to feel comfortable and confident in sharing their story because they can relate to an individual that kind of looks like them and looks like where they come from and feel comfortable like, oh man, I'm not alone. And I wanted, especially for men, to share their feelings and know that it's not whack or corny or whatever the case may be, to step up and be, I guess, share your feelings. So I wanted to create that platform and interview people. And then I know for yourself, in our communities, it's not a thing that we do when it comes to mental health and stuff like that. We don't share, I had a suicidal thought. We don't share that I was depressed. We don't share these things. It's almost like you sweep it under the rug and act like it don't exist. To be able to provide a safe space for people to share their stories and hope create conversations within people households.
Was it easy to take your challenges and make it into a victory called a podcast? Because a lot of people would say, no way, I'm not going to do like a podcast about this. Was it an easy transition for you to say, from it to becoming from an idea to become a reality?
I say yes and no. No, because starting a podcast, I didn't know nothing from it. I knew I listened to podcasts, I didn't know anything about it, so that part was difficult. me talking as we're talking right now, I'm like, oh, y'all interested in hearing this? I didn't know that this was a thing. Like, y'all care about what I've been through or my emotions and stuff like that. And I realized there was impact and power within sharing your emotion, because a lot of people don't. Everybody's acting like they don't have any emotions. So that portion wasn't hard for me, but the actual development and learning and putting it out there, and partially the other portion that I did have difficulty with, I didn't know what to say when I got on the mic.
Okay,
I
so
didn't know what people were
let
going.
me interrupt here.
Go
You are
ahead.
the great conversationalist. You're saying you had difficulty just what to say. You just said a few minutes ago that I'm
I
a great
didn't.
conversation to have. So why was it difficult?
Because you see, me and you, I can talk like this, but when you could take you out of the room, it's like now I'm talking to myself. Now this feels weird. So what do I say out there that y'all want to hear? And I don't have a response feedback loop to know, like, all right, this is interesting or it's not, or they don't care or they do. So that portion was hard for me.
Okay, well, you know what? I just say to people, sometimes you have to just jump off a cliff and grow your wings on the way down.
Hey, fix the plane while
Ah,
flying
there you go. As long as it's in a certain Boeing plane, yeah, okay, all right.
it.
Uh, so so let me ask, and I always love when ideas become reality. How long was it from the time you thought about doing this podcast till you did your first episode?
All right, so that's a two-part answer too, because before that podcast, I had a relationship podcast with my
Okay,
fiance. So we had about 20 episodes where we were just talking about, because we were 24, 25, and we were trying to figure out love. It was called How Do You Love? And we're going to bring it back, but it was called How Do You Love? And we were trying to figure out this thing called love at a young age, because we knew we wanted to build a foundation for our family and the things that we were building, but we didn't know where to start, where to go. So we were just presenting the questions, the problems, and the stuff that we were going through on a platform. So before that, I had to learn about podcasting. So I would say about, if you're including the How Do You Love time, it took me about a year and a half to get it up and running.
okay, excellent. Congrats. Do you remember your first episode?
Yes, I was sitting at my kitchen table and I felt so nervous.
You know, there's so much I can relate to with you because I remember doing my first conversation at my dining room table, and so I
Hmm.
can relate. And I wasn't nervous, so I was busted. I wanted to get it done, but is the first episode still
Hmm.
up? Good.
Yes, I renamed it 000, and it gives me it lets me feel good because I seen where I came from. Before it was like I was worried about so much. How am I sitting? And should I be like this? And have a paper and let's talk. So it's just so many things. And now I'm just like, I'm just having a regular
That's
conversation.
it. That's it. You're having conversations online about a very challenging arena. Just want actually before we go any further, want to shout out to Dr. Tachi, who's on the Get Vocal platform. Also, Don Fit to Be Free says she's saying most of us have been taught, especially my generation, to hide our quote dirty unquote laundry. So she understands where you're coming from.
Hmm.
It in the black, I don't like saying the word in the black environment. What are some of the
Hmm.
challenges, whether you have experienced or others have told you on your conversations when we're discussing and dealing with mental health in the black environment?
I know specifically a lot of us are depressed, but we hide depression so well, or I don't even say so well because it's you can kind of tell if you know what to look for. And sadness and pain, that's the real one. It's real pain in our community from generationals, even with slavery and not going to therapy for that PTSD and racial things that's still going on in today's world. And I just day to day you see depression where people don't have the job that they want, or their bills can't be paid, or they can't get over a relationship, and we don't know what to do to get. We don't have therapy in our communities because we don't speak about it. And I noticed there's just so many people are just in pain that leads to other things. For most them to being doing angry and being aggressive and doing outlandish things that they wouldn't normally do. in their normal state of mind, and then for certain people it makes them overeat and eat the cakes and the ice creams and stuff like that. So it's a lot of pain within our community that doesn't get acknowledged and addressed, and it just manifests itself in different areas of our
Right.
lives.
I would be remiss. Dr. Tachi's here. I just always, when she's on, I got to mention she does a great live stream conversation on Wednesday evenings, 5 p.m. Eastern Time via Instagram Live, and then 6 p.m. Periscope Live and Facebook Live called Mediascope. It is the hottest live online conversation about media, tech, and pop culture, hosted by Dr. Tachi in the lovely hot state of Florida. So I just wanted to make sure I got that in there. This, especially for, okay, let me, is the trauma or is the Black mental health challenge different for Black men versus Black women?
I think it's compares apples to oranges. It's like we all trying to hide. Like I said earlier, we all trying to hide playing better. It's different struggles for each, and we're trying to out. The only thing that I don't like is for women. I feel, in my perspective, it gets addressed. It is allowed to feel, and as far as men, it doesn't get the same significance that I feel like women get. Like I feel like there's an unbalance in the addressing the need. For example, Father's Day is coming up, and it's a lot of things within our community where it's used to bash the fathers that's not here, and instead of uplifting the ones that are doing it. When Mother's Day come around, every mother gets celebrated, and when Father's Day come around, it's like the single mothers take over that day too. It's like we get that day too because we do both roles, and I get it. I salute the women that do it. They are so great courage. I grew up with a single mom, so I'm very appreciative and grateful. But I also know there's a bunch of men out there that don't get the credit that they deserve. It's like almost like the squeakiest wheel gets the most attention, and because you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't get the attention that you deserve as well. And I feel like just comparing it is like there's an imbalance, but we all struggle. We all have our own individual struggles as well as genders. It's just deeper along each
Okay.
level.
So on your program, do you feature Black men, Black women, and on, okay, I have another conversation piece on top, but so we'll start at that first.
Yes, to answer it simple, Soren, yes, and I try to involve individuals who's been a part of my life, and we had maybe differences, or I seen that they have a story that needs to be shared. For example, I had a gay there's a gay, I guess you can call him gay, a gay young man on there that he thought that I didn't like him because he was gay, and it was just those intricacies within the Black men where it's like, oh, you're gay, so I don't mess with you, or you it's just so many things about that people don't understand. And for a second I had to realize that people have certain struggles that I don't understand, and just because you don't understand it don't mean it makes it less validated. So I wanted to provide that platform as well. As like I'm a heterosexual male. I don't know what it's like to be a gay Black man, but I wanted to provide that platform to have a conversation between a gay Black man and a heterosexual male, where it's not a divide, but it's like let's come to a place of understanding one another, because I feel like we are already divided enough. Let's create a space where we can come together.
Nice. And I just want to shout out Mr. Luke, my fellow Canuck from Canada, Windsor, I believe. Thanks for stopping by on the Get Vocal platform. Reggie, let me ask, is it easier for you to get, or is it any different getting a Black man on the platform versus a Black woman?
It's so hard getting Black men on the podcast. So hard getting Black men on the podcast. Now, I can have conversations off air about them with them all the time. They'll have the regular conversations, but in fear of being judged and being criticized and stuff like that, they won't have that same conversation on the platform because they know they can't be their real and true selves. And I get it and I understand it. So whenever I get one on that I can have a genuine conversation with, I always try to, but it's harder to get men on there for sure.
Then I want to focus on the Black man just a bit and the mental health. How deep is the mental health challenge with many Black men out there? It sounds like a really, really deep thing.
I think it's very very ingrained in culture because mind you, we talk, there's layers to everything. So men themselves don't have the safe space they feel like to be vulnerable, and then when you add the black version or the black tell a part of that, you being a man, then it's a whole nother experience, even going from like I said, back to slavery, because I really do study this stuff, generation stuff, and where you had to see your woman get raped and your child get separated, and you get separated from your family, you get demasculated, but can't do nothing about it, and then you grow, and then it's just so many generational layers that's on top of all of that stuff, and it goes so deep up to the point of why would you sell drugs in your community? Well, if you feel like you can't find a job and you want to provide for your family, or if you've been to jail and you can't do stuff, it'll make it look bad. And then you selling drugs to someone that you love, like your mother or your auntie, and then it's just a whole mental wheel, a circus that no one ever took the time to try to dissect and understand and really try to figure out a solution. I don't think jail is a solution. I think like people need mental institutions more than jail.
Okay. Interesting. An associate of mine recently said that she said to me that she feels that every Black person should have a therapist. What is your response to that?
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Just to get the tools to be able to do things on your own should be a basic requirement. Because I think, and I was just having a conversation with somebody about this the other day. In school, from childhood, we prioritize gym. You have to have a gym teacher. Your physical health is so important. You have to eat right. You have to do all of these things to protect your physical health. But what about your mind? Your mind, if the mind is not right, if your brain is not right, everything else falls apart. So why not have a mental health teacher in every school, just like you have a physical educational teacher in every school? Because it's just as significant. Like I think they say the mind first and then the body follows. So if the mind is the most important thing, why isn't that a priority on educational level? And like I said, that stuff is a passion for me, so I can go into a whole deep end.
Go
But
for it. Go
in the
for it. You
short
got
part,
some time.
yes.
Go for it, man. Let it loose, man. Let
In
it
the
rip.
short part, because it just bothers me how much that our educational says that they care about the things that's happening within our children and all of the stuff that they say they prioritize, but there's nothing that's really um focused on emotional health inside the educational system. Like it's all of these things. It's one guidance counselor to how many ever people in the school. I think, like I said, it's just as much as there a gym teacher, there has to be someone whose sole job is to focus on the mental stability of the students within the school. And the only reason why I'm harping on the children, because it starts from an early age. If you can attack it early, then you don't have to worry about grown kids out here who don't know how to have the tools to fix their mental health. It start when you can get it into the children earlier. You solve a problem that doesn't need to be solved when you're an adult.
And you see, when you took it up a notch. People are responding here. Don Fit to Be Free is saying on Periscope, so many layers of pain. And then she also says, say that again for the folks in the back. Whatever is going on mentally manifests physically. And she's also shared this out to our Periscope family. Also, Lucas saying on the Get Vocal platform, yeah, it should be taught in school. Too many men can't deal with this stuff. Fully agree. As I say, if your life's a mess, most of the time because your mind's a mess.
That's true.
So this is powerful. Now you did talk about the younger kids, but again, what about the parents?
Mm.
Because children are, well, they emulate what they replicate.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't it also a concern too on the parental, for lack of a word, healing?
I think we have to attack it from different levels. And I talk about it when I speak. We have to go community wise, we have to go educational in the school wise, but you also have to have it prioritized at work where in your jobs, in where you spend most of your time during the week, they should be prioritizing what's going on at home so that way you can do a better job when you come to work. If you're not prioritizing that person's emotional health, how can you expect them to do a job when they come into your place every day? They coming in miserable. They coming in because they can't pay their bills, or they coming in, they're not their best self. So I feel like employers need to start to invest in mental health as well, and they have someone that's on staff, on hand, that's purpose and job is to evaluate the employee's mental health.
It'd be interesting, and I'll just put it out there to the people who are watching live. Have you ever worked in a workplace that had access to therapy, as like a health plan? And especially my concern is these days with health costs being cut back. I know it's a lot of cutbacks are happening in the United States. In Canada, we're still okay, but they're starting to be cut back also. A lot of workplaces don't have that facility or that service available. And it's interesting here. I'm seeing Luke here on the side says, I get one visit per year. He's never used it.
Mm. And they don't make it known either, but they'll tell you about that free gym membership that you get or that you get required. And it's like, it's not, it's really, they need to prioritize and put it into the forefront, and wondering why certain employees are committing it.
Well, so just to counteract that, Luke, yes, it's companies need to prioritize that, but doesn't it also need to come from the people to try and tell the companies what we need? Because a lot of companies, they're not going to do something unless there's the push. Do you not think?
Well, and I forgot where I heard that. But they said if you would have asked the people back in the day before you built the car, what did they need? And they would have said a faster horse instead of a car. So sometimes people don't know what they need. So it's
True.
like you have to, until you provide it to them. And it's like, oh, this feels that me. For me, meditation, I just thought it was like a hippie, like weird thing. But actually, once I had to sit down and tried it was like, oh, everyone needs to meditate just as much as you eat. It's meditation should be a requirement. So that way, because the world is so nosy or noisy, that you need some time to just unload and cut off from the world and just be in a safe space in your mind where you don't have to deal with anything for at least 10 minutes. No children, no relationship, no community, no nothing. Just you and
Don Fit to Be Free on Periscope says so many companies still attach a stigma to seeing a therapist.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too. It's some of them things where it's a two-hand, because if they do start to do it, they'll look into your file and may not hire you because they feel like you may be mentally ill. And it's a double-edged sword where it's like, that's how you know people need to be re-educated about the importance of it. It's like saying, all right, I'm not going to hire you because you're overweight, or I'm not going to that's the same thing physically as far as it mentally. Are you carrying baggage in your head? So I'm not going to hire you.
It's interesting you mentioned that. So can you imagine a person of color having to deal with that, getting hired, and then also the emotional challenge on top of that?
100%. It's so like it's just, I'm a loss for words because I do have a lot of passion behind it, but I know it's just a ignorant meaning not knowing and needing of re-education. And that's why I talk about children, because at least if you can get it at the racism dies out when the older generation dies out. It's the new children that you need to focus on, so that way it can never exist. And I feel like the same thing with mental health. If you can focus on the seed when it grows out, then it can produce way more mentally healthy fruits than anything.
So when you do your podcasts, and also because I know you do another number of engagements, public engagements, talking about this subject, what reaction are you getting? And are the audiences all Black? And if they're not, what responses are you getting from Black audiences versus non-Black audiences?
So I always say I'm twofold. I was trying to answer both at the same time. So I started off with the Black Mental Health podcast because that's the only experience that I knew. I know I wanted to talk about mental health. I know I wanted to talk about mental health in my community, but as I'm growing, I'm realizing it's a global, if not like universal problem. So now it's like, all right, now Reg, you got to represent for the people within your community as well as it's still a global issue. So when I talk to the African American experiences, it's finally like it's like a relief off their shoulder. It's like whew, like somebody is talking about what's going on inside, but no one is speaking about it. So it's like a sense of relief when I talk within the African American community. Now that I'm venturing out and talking to non-African American communities, it's for one, it's eye opening for them because they don't realize how much turmoil and trauma that's within the community. They just it's like slavery's over. What are you complaining about, basically? Like, and it's like, no, there's long lasting effects that's within our community that no one's speaking about. And when I talk to them, I'm getting educated because like you're able to hear someone else's experiences within a different culture that you probably are not recognizing. And like I said, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges. Everyone goes through some type of traumatic experiences, and you can view one higher than the other, but everyone feels some type of pain. So when I talk to them, it's more of an education for me. And more recently, I just partnered with NAMNI, which is the biggest mental health organization in America, or at least one of them. And they are exposing me to a different audience. And I know for me, and I learned that early age, I don't know where I heard it from. I'm going to be a representation of the African American community when I get in front of that different audience. So I'm just now starting to get into audiences outside of my community, which is for me, I love to learn. So it's a rewarding experience just to get educated about different
What has the
experiences.
podcast taught you? And is there anything doing the podcast that you found out about yourself that you did not know about yourself?
Um, it's taught me that to be less judgmental. Not saying I was out here like oh you're bad because of this, or just being judgmental like that. But it taught me to try to come from a place of understanding with all interactions, even interactions outside of my culture. So it's taught me to have a sense of what's that word? I can't even think of that. Compassion, a sense of compassion for others' experiences, and just know when someone cuts you off in traffic, is not oh they did it spitefully. It could be they have a pregnant woman in the car and they're trying to hurry up and get to where they need to get. Before we just automatically just jump to conclusion. So it's taught me that. And what I learned about myself is I really love helping people. Like I really get enjoyment and fulfillment out of serving others and helping them attain whatever they're trying to attain, even if it's just getting that conversation off of their mind. I just love literally helping people. It wasn't until I had my family I had to learn that I had to find a way to make money and help people at the same time, because I was doing it for free for the longest. But I genuinely love people help and helping. And someone asked me the other day, like, if you had to die, what would you want people to say about you? And for me, it's I really cared. Like he really cared. I want that to be the long lasting memory. That's so it's like, oh no, he's one of those individuals that actually
Nice,
cared.
nice. How do you balance all of this? Good.
Prioritizing, prioritizing is literally trying to figure out what needs to be done, because we all have running to-do lists. So it's more so what needs to be done, what needs to be done now, what needs to be done by me, what can I do to do it in a efficient way, and just finding ways to you know again prioritize and making it done in an efficient way where it looks like you're in more places than you actually
What do
are.
you do to keep your mental health balanced?
My morning routine is I call it my power hour. I read, meditate, and journal within that hour. So is it? I forgot the numbers. What's the what 33? I think it's like 30 minutes divided between each of them. And I just read, meditate, and I read to find something new. I heard that Warren Buffett reads like 6 hours a day before he gets his day started. So I'm trying to work up to being more efficient in that manner as well, because he looks at it almost like sharpening the blade of your sword, and then before you hitting the tree, instead of just going and hitting the tree a bunch of times, it's like, no, let me sharpen it up, so when I go in out there and hit, and I want to be efficient, I'll hit it and knock it down easier. So I try to read as much as I can. Journaling helps me work through and organize my thought, and literally anything that's on my mind, I get to pour out, and then once I pour it out, it's in some place where I can look back and analyze and reflect on it. I usually read my journals at the end of the year, and then meditation is such a key thing, and I try as much as I can to get it in every day possible, because it's so beneficial. Like, it helps me keep in organization when I
So
can meditate.
this is where you're at now. So over the last, how much and what has changed with you in the last 3 years?
In the last 3 years, honestly, I feel like it's an accelerated growth. Alignment, that's the word I used the other day. I feel like I'm finally walking in my purpose. I'm finally walking in my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing in this world. So I feel like I'm in alignment with God, or whoever the energy, the universe wants me to be. So in the past 3 years, I've been. Last year was the everything that we talked about that I have accomplished. My podcast, my book, speaking, even being a coach. That's within the last 8 months. So every years before that, or all the years before that, my
Oh,
son is
wow.
7 now. He was born in 2012, so he was the spark of what I wanted to do, and it was like, all right, I need to get alignment. And last year was the first time I felt like, oh, I figured it out, what I'm supposed to be doing, and now I need to walk within it. So, in the last 3 years, I feel like it's been alignment, aligning myself
Nice.
with what I'm supposed to do.
What's the future of the podcast? What's the next vision?
I want to hopefully I want to go on tour, and doing live podcasts with certain communities to open up conversations. So I'll bring an individual on within a city or something like that, and provide an event basically for the community to come and have a place for um sharing stories and feeling vulnerable and meeting other people who make it comfortable. Because as much as I talk about putting your feelings out there, and being the one to expose how you're feeling inside, you can't do that with everybody. You can't do it with certain individuals. Certain individuals will turn you down. So I want to create basically like a family. Like, some people don't have family members that they can come to and share their inner thoughts and emotions. So I want to eventually create a family of people where a family of a safe space of people where you can come and share your
Nice.
thoughts.
Very, very nice. Um, as we start winding it down, I'd like you to give some messages since you're targeting it's called the Black Mental Health Podcast. Can you give me a message to our audience, specifically Black women, when it comes to mental health? What words would you like to share with them?
Thank you for them. Honestly, that's to be honest. I feel like women are the backbone of the Black culture, the Black community, and they don't get enough credit. They that more than they deserve, and I feel like they are the most unheard, unspoken ones. And for example, the reason why this is coming from that place is when I was in the hospital. I was
Oh,
in a car accident in December, and it was in somebody ran. I was short story. Somebody ran a red light. They T-boned into me. They had my leg was hanging. My bone came out of my leg. My hand was messed up. Um, and around my bedside was nothing but women in my life. It was no men, no dad, no brothers, no nothing. It was my mom, my sister, my fiance, my godmother, and it was just women surrounding my bedside. And I feel like they do that all the time, where they are the backbone for the community, and they're just so unheard and taken advantage of. So if I had a message for them, I would just say thank you. And that there are men out there who appreciate you and who recognize the strength that they get up with every day, being single mothers and single women and stuff like that. So thank you to them. That would be the only message that
Okay,
comes to
so now we're
mind
going
off
to
the
flip it
bat.
over to the black men.
For men, I would say that your brothers were here to listen to you. And what I mean by that is you can be vulnerable to your brother and tell him what you're going through. You know, certain and I say, and I'm speaking from experience because um one of my closest friends, we never talk about what's going on in each other's life. Like, and we talk about the accomplishments, but the mental struggles of what's going on in each other's lives and what we're being what we're feeling inside. And I've learned over the years with that, especially when it comes to men, when I'm checking on them, not to check on what they are doing, but check on them. Like, no, how's you? Like, how are you doing? Like, how are you feeling? To really, because sometimes all it takes is a person to actually ask and really be concerned. I feel like a lot of the times we just go through our day to days without actually being concerned about what individuals are going through. So I just feel like for my brothers, I want to I want to let them know that it's okay to talk to your brother. And if you want to find out which brother you need to be talking to, you be that brother that people feel comfortable talking to.
And then your message to the black environment, black people in general, when it comes to mental health.
um when I talk to people in general, I say don't let your environment eat you. And what I mean by that is don't let where you come from the like consume you, and to think, because we start to get comfortable in chaos and start to think that's the only way life is supposed to live, and it's supposed to be chaotic all the time. And you know that we're supposed to eat the things that we eat. We're supposed to you just do the thing. Our actions are controlled by some things outside of our source. We have to gain control and know that because we come from a certain environment, that we don't have to be consumed by the things that's going on. And you can be encouraged to step outside the norm and actually create a new life and a new version for yourself. And I tie that into mental health because it's like you know some things are wrong in your within your community, but we still do them because that's what's the norm. And it's like, but it's causing you mental anguishes inside your mind because you know it's not right, but you can't stop yourself from doing it. So I would just say in general with a community, just don't let your environment
Let
eat
me
you.
put it out there and see what your response is. Do you feel, I say this to people, black, non-black, etc., that you should have at least one or two people in your life that know everything good and everything bad about you?
Yes, 100%. And you have to have confidence, and even and it's a sense of vulnerability because you have to expose yourself of what you're really feeling and who you really are. I say that all the time where people look at me and my fiance, we're close because she knows a lot about me, more than the average person. And before we're in a relationship, we're friends. Like, we have a friendship where it's like she knows the real me. And then even she's been with me from my mental transitions of me being not so healthy and up to healthiness. So she knows when to check in on me and make sure you know what's going on. And you need that venting wall, sort of sense, because um if you just keep all that stuff inside, it's just going to explode. So if you get it out to a person, get it out in a journal, get it out in the exercise, just get it outside of you, be so that way you're not just withholding all of that emotional
Yeah.
baggage in the inside.
Lucas Singh, as a wise man once say, do the right thing. No, do the right.
Mm-hmm.
Very, 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 very true. As I say to people, you didn't come into the world by yourself, so why are you trying to do it all by yourself, right?
And so many people helped you get into this world that you don't even
Very,
know
very,
about.
very true. Well, I know you with what you've just shared us. Plus, you got a family, you got a lot on the go, and you got a lot offline and online. And I just like to say thank you so much for taking the time to share with us this evening. I learned a lot. Also, to put it out there to people in America, July is Mental Health Awareness Month. So, Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, I believe, is in July. So, definitely, it's an everyday
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it is not a bad thing to go see a therapist, really and truly. because
At
it's
all.
always good as long as it's someone you trust and they have your best interests, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes other people can see a different perspective that you may not be able to see or get to. Reggie, how
Mm-hmm.
can people find out more about you?
Everything on social media, my website, my email, everything is at Reginald A. Howard. Reginald, the letter A, HOWARD. So ReginaldAHoward.com, Reginald A. Howard on Facebook, Instagram. So all social medias, I'm at Reginald A.
Fantastic.
Howard.
Before we leave the epic conversation, I just want to shout out to everyone who chimed in on the Periscope side. Herbie's Hangout. I was going to say Herbie Hancock. Herbie's Hangout. You Forsyth, Sean Osby, Nicole Van Cleve. Nicole Van Cleve. Don Fit to be Free. Thank you, Don from Chicago. Also, J Money Queen Bee. Interesting handle. And Med Prodigy 1978. Thank you so much for jumping in on the Periscope side, on the Get Vocal side. Lakesh, Luke, my fellow Canuck, Dr. Tachi, remember, catch her on Wednesday evenings on Periscope, and Big Brad. Brad, as always, thanks for chiming in. I am Dr. Vibe. I'm the host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. If you want to find out more about me, best place to go to is my website, the drvibeshow.com. As always, I like to sign off with these things. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, and then also say this: aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. And it's interesting that we're having this conversation with Reggie, because over the last few weeks or so, I've doing some realignment thought wise, or just seeing where my life is. And I try to do these things as much as possible. So I want to make sure I get them right. I try to accept people where they're at. Also, um, I just got to lead with love, fairness and respect, and shift culture. So going to achieve those things, or in the process of achieving those things. So I think that goes well in alignment with what we've discussed here during this epic conversation, because we need to shift the culture in regards to the thoughts when it goes to mental health. So remember, there's a lot of people out there that are screaming and nothing's coming out. You may be one of them. So let it out, whether it's a journal or whether it's to a friend or a medical professional. Let's make it happen. God bless, peace to well, keep the faith, and thanks everybody for watching live on the replay. Be well.